Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today, I'd like to talk about data theft and ransomware attacks, and I'd like to welcome back to the show CEO at Simple Security, Steve Hindle. Steve, welcome back.
It's good to be back, Alex. Great to see you.
I wish we had a more happier topic to discuss, but uh, we don't. Uh,
Security is always a happy topic as long as you're doing the right thing, right? Yeah.
exactly. And back in February, contributor Tom Quinn to the
Mm.
Digit website talked about how data exfiltration is really becoming prominent now with ransomware and other things that are happening. Can you talk about, first of all, what is data exfiltration?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep it simple. It's what we do, right? It's what it says on the tin. So the threat actors, the bad guys, right? Again, putting it in simple terms, the bad guys are actively looking at business disruption as a monetary gain. So really importantly, why do bad guys commit crimes? They commit crimes to gain money, right? It's just theft at the end of the day. So what do organizations have that bad guys want to steal? Mostly it's data. That's a key component of what the ransomware epidemic has created since since the mid 2010s all the way through now into the middle of the 2020s. Ransomware has evolved. It used to be a reputation and notoriety piece, and then the bad guys realized they could make significant profit by disrupting business and stopping an organization getting access to their data by encrypting it. But that all takes time. It takes compute. It takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of sophistication. And it's getting easier and easier, especially in this age of AI. So the bad guys pivoted from just encryption to then stealing that data. And they could then threaten companies with releasing that data onto the dark web for sale or otherwise in these massive leaked data sets that we all hear of. Where do those data sets come from? They come from the bad guys compromising organizations, stealing that data. All exfiltration means is just taking it out. It's an unexpected offsite backup, right? You're just having your data moved into somewhere you didn't really expect it to be. And then they're just advertising that data for sale. So they can threaten companies and say, we're gonna publish this data, right? Maybe not even sell it, just publish it online unless you pay us money. And then as an organization, they can then name and shame you. And you've got brand and reputational damage, and you've got the threat of that data leak or data theft hanging over you. And you'll probably lose business, you'll lose customers, you may face regulatory fines for data privacy if you've got PII, personal data in there. And that's what the bad guys are banking on. They're banking on businesses and organizations then not wanting that data to escape. And it's honor among thieves. You've got to trust that they will not do what they say they're going to do, right? To pay those ransom pieces. It's not always data exfiltration. Sometimes they're just in it to disrupt your business, stop you from serving the needs of your customers by taking servers and systems offline. That doesn't involve data so much. But if you've got data in your environment and the bad guys can get access to it, they can threaten the leak of that data and say, hey, we're going to publish it. And then companies, if they can afford it, will pay. If they have cyber insurance, they may be able to recoup some of those costs, but there's a lot of nuances around that.
It's like data is a new currency.
Yeah, I mean, a while ago we used to say that data is the new oil, right? If you look at, I'm going to make an assumption about your audience, right? I'm going to make an assumption to say I presume most people know what a Pokemon is. Okay, so if your audience are listening to this and you're thinking, well, okay, why is he talking about Pokemon? Pokemon, a company called Niantic built a game, a mobile app called Pokemon Go. Got people out of their chairs, out hunting Pokemons in the real world using augmented reality, right? They'd go driving around or walking around and they'd go into these Pokemon gyms that were scattered around the world and they would be playing and beating Pokemon, getting their levels up, all this kind of good stuff. Really good, wholesome fun. I've got a 70-odd-year-old guy that walks around the ballpark next to my house fighting Pokemon. And he's been doing it now for years. And you see him just walking around with his head down on his phone and he's just battling Pokemon, right? So it's all generations. What we've recently learned is that now you've got things like, bear with me, you've got things like delivery robots that are out in big cities, and those delivery robots are basically just delivering goods from warehouses, etc., into the hands of consumers or businesses. And they're little tiny pink kind of blocks that roll down sidewalks. A lot of people hate them, right? It's the way we're going. What they don't realize is all of your Pokemon Go players for the last 5 years have been out there mapping neighborhoods. And Niantic sold that data to the guys that make those delivery robots, because Google Maps and Google Earth and all the rest of it isn't 100% accurate and doesn't go into neighborhoods. But if you get a Pokemon Go player walking around a neighborhood battling Pokemon, you're mapping areas where, traditional satellite geomapping data hasn't happened. Like my ballpark isn't mapped, but it is now, thanks to my 70-year-old guy that's out there Pokemoning, right? So those delivery robots are got incredibly accurate delivery-based data down to shop and storefronts, which has been provided through Pokemon Go players. So when you say data is valuable, it's incredibly valuable. And often you don't necessarily know, or you don't understand that the data that you're creating or that you're managing as an individual is really valuable to organizations, both for marketing, shipping. The US government is doing some really interesting things with data right now. And that data, we're all data. So we are all inherently valuable. Companies have a lot of data in their data lakes and their data stores, and the bad guys know this. And that's what they're going after. So data is the new oil. It's the crown jewels of an organization in the majority of cases. And so if a bad guy manages to get into your company's infrastructure and network, they're going to look around and they're going to try and find data. And everybody has data. Your HR team has data. Your operations team has data. Your business model is built on data, swaths and swaths of data that are out there. So yeah, I would agree with you. Data is a truly a form of currency, especially for the bad guys.
So ransomware is just another way of obtaining it when, if you read the headlines, it's the only way of obtaining it. But it's now becoming just another way of doing it, using your Pokemon example.
Yeah, exactly. Organizations sometimes don't have a good handle on the types of data that they hold. An organization may think to itself that I don't have or process a lot of data. What am I? I'm a bakery, right? I've got several different. Maybe I'm a franchised bakery. Maybe I've got hundreds of locations and we're selling bagels. Okay, well, maybe I have a proprietary bagel recipe. That might be sensitive data that I don't want my competitors to obtain. But what a lot of organizations don't tend to think about is when they think about the data that they store, you have employees. Your employees get paid. So you have the information on Steve Hindle, your employee. You know my name. You know my address. You likely know my date of birth. You maybe know my social security number. And you have to pay me. You've got my bank details. And some organizations, they will inherently store that and not really have a good handle on where it is. They may have a HR platform or a payroll platform. Let's pick a big name like Workday or ADP. It's all cloud-based. It's managed by that vendor in its entirety. And you may think it's fine. I don't have any of Steve's data because it's all managed by Workday or ADP. Okay, that's okay. That's great. You've slippery shouldered a lot of that responsibility until you find that Bob, who works in HR, has got 500 PDFs of W-2s or I-9s on his computer that he gets when an applicant joins the company, and he asks them to fill out some PDFs and they store copies of those PDFs. Or maybe it's all stored in Workday, but Bob occasionally downloads them because sometimes Workday is not available and he likes to have it to hand. And that one gap in process can suddenly result in sensitive data that you didn't know about. But if Bob clicks on a link in an email and then gets phished and his workstation, his credentials get compromised, and the bad guys have access to Bob's laptop, the first thing they're going to do is they're not going to look around at the network. They're going to look around at what's on Bob's laptop. And I find this folder that maybe has an Excel file in it or has 500 W2 PDFs dating back 10 years, and I'm going to take all of that. And I'm going to then say, hey, Steve's Bagels, I've got an absolute ton of data here, and I'm going to cripple you, and I'm going to expose you for having bad data security practices because I'm going to leak all of this information online. You're going to get fined for data privacy violations because you didn't encrypt it. It was just sat on Bob's laptop, and I'm going to publish it all on the internet. On all of the Steves and Brendas and Janes and Bobs out there, all of their data is going to get lost, and you're going to have to pay for identity theft protection, identity monitoring, and all of that is going to cost you a fortune. But not if you pay me, Nasty Steve, the bad guy, right? And that's the extortion component, that's cyber extortion, holding your data to ransom. Ransom because of a software attack, hence ransomware. That's really what it comes down to.
And it's not guaranteed that they haven't already done something with it anyway.
You're absolutely right. This is where you get into the honor among thieves piece. How do you know that they'll uphold their end of the bargain? But you've also got to consider, and I think we talked about this on a previous episode, it's big business. It's organized crime. So the guy that's compromising your network, getting into your systems, is likely not the guy that's holding you to ransom. So your data exists at several points of that bad guy kill chain, if you will, that threat actor chain. And who's to say that you make a deal over here, but this guy's still got a copy of your data over here, and he may make a deal, and he may, if he's a good bad guy, he may delete that data. But what about this guy? What about this guy that's still got a copy of your data over here? And this is why these big, like, mother of all breaches, the MOAB, which it had like 15 billion records published online. It was an amalgamation of prior data breaches all gathered together in one big data set. There's nothing to say that your information, once compromised, is not going to reappear later down the line. And especially now, we live in an age of immediate access to data. We live in an age of automation and a lot of pieces being given access to even greater amounts of data through AI. All of that leads to more and more fragility and more uncertainty.
Well, I definitely know AI can be used nefariously in these instances. Are there any things that AI can be utilized to help us, help protect us?
Yeah, the good guys, right? We've talked about the bad guys. The good guys are very much leveraging AI and automation to respond and detect intrusions faster. So most of the new tooling in the security world, the cybersecurity world, leverages AI to gather lots and lots of data and signals from all over your environment and all over the world, threat intelligence, and then tune and detect where an organization may have the start of a piece of compromise. We offer and we build what we call continuous controls monitoring, such that rather than doing points in time assessments of an environment, a network, a piece of infrastructure, or a company, you do your once a year audit, and that tells you some findings that maybe you have risk over here. But now under this new mode of continuous controls monitoring, which is enabled by AI and automation, we can keep an eye on the environment. And when something pops up where something isn't patched, where a technology policy isn't being applied properly, we can detect it when it happens, provide those insights, and maybe even we can use AI to automate and close those gaps. So we've always got that rolling protective control around the organization and the tools and the environment that we're in. And that's how we're leveraging automation, because AI is really just automation on superpowers, right? We're leveraging that automation to really get faster at detecting and protecting organizations from threats. It does mean we're racing to catch up with the bad guys, though. They're using AI too. So as much as we're using it, they're using it.
I was just going to say that. So if AI is letting us or giving us the ability to slowly catch up to where the bad guys are, if we leverage it right and we really think about it and use some of the suggestions you have, as fast as they are coming up with ways of using AI to get into our stuff and steal our data
Absolutely. And
instead
and
of
it's
instead of always being so far behind, if we're smart, we can at least, like you said, identify these threats faster.
Oh, completely. It's an arms race. Think about it in the terms of, what everybody of a certain gentleman of a certain age, like you and I, we can remember the arms race, and this is how it is: the space race, the arms race. It's now the AI race, right? Who can leverage AI to be better and faster? The bad guys and the good guys are both racing to try and be better at this. We've also got a proliferation now of, I mean, there's 101 different AI tools out there that you can use. ChatGPT, OpenAI, Claude, Gemini, right? There's millions of AI tooling, right? And it's really important that we understand, as security practitioners, as people in technology, as people in business continuity, right? We have to understand that everybody has access to some element of AI. And you can ask AI to do amazing things. If you try and do a Google search these days, the first thing you're being provided with is an AI summary of what you're looking for. It may not be accurate all the time, but it's going to pull from the search data that you would have, and it's going to summarize that and say, hey, this is the answer we think you're looking for based on the information we've gained from these 4 sites over here as the top search criteria.
Yeah,
And as such, that means that AI has access to AI in that regard, public AI, as we call it, has access to everything that may be out there on the internet. It has the entire visibility of that stack, research papers, you name it. And then if we look at that from a bad guy perspective, it's that accidental use of AI from people like you and I working for other organizations. The average employee is going to be using AI whether we want them to or not. If you as a boss give me as an employee a task to do, if I'm not at all sure about it, or if I want to maybe save myself some time, maybe I'll just ask AI. Hey, boss has asked me to write a policy about cybersecurity. Now I could do that. It might take me a few hours. But if I just ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm a bagel company and my boss needs me to write a cybersecurity policy, can you write me a cybersecurity for a bagel company? And ChatGPT will spit out a policy based on that, based on what it thinks it knows about you. If
yeah,
you don't check that for errors, you might have some squirrely stuff in there. But that's the nature of how employees are using AI, and they're using it to be faster at their jobs. Great. But what happens if I'm being asked for something and I use AI and I say, okay, boss is asking me about how many employees we've got in Canada. So, how many employees do we have in Canada? And I'm a HR guy, and I could go into my HR platform and I could click about 500 buttons and I could get a report printed out for me that tells me that. Or maybe I can go into Claude. Let's use Claude. I've picked on ChatGPT enough, right? I could go into Claude and I could say, "Hey, Claude, or Gemini, we're a Google Workspace shop, right? All of my documents are in Google Sheets, so I've got a list of a ton of employee files in Google Sheets. Hey, Gemini, go look at all my files over here and go tell me how many employees I've got in Canada." And Gemini is going to go, sure, Steve, based on all of your spreadsheets in this one folder called Canada HR employee data, you've got 50 employees in Canada. Here's all their names. Here's all their addresses. Would you like to see their social security numbers too? You go, oh, yeah, that'll be useful. Please tell me their socials as well, Gemini. That'd be great. Okay, great. Oh, here it is. That's wonderful. And what you don't realize in that moment is that potentially you've just pointed a public AI tool at your entire sensitive data stack. And the bad guys know that. They are leveraging access, Steve's access to Gemini. If I can compromise Steve's access to Gemini, I can see every question that Steve or prompt that Steve has asked Gemini to provide. And if I can say, Steve just asked about some sensitive data over here, show me the answer to that question. Oh, look, I've got all of those Canadian employee data.
yeah,
So shadow AI, ungoverned AI, that's all shadow really means. Shadow IT, shadow AI is just ungoverned AI, where I can access AI tooling on devices that the company doesn't control, or maybe websites that the company doesn't control. And if I give it access to data that I really shouldn't be doing, then the bad guys can compromise that. Shadow AI compromise is a massive attack vector these days.
Well, we've come to the end of the episode. Did you want to share any final thought on data theft and ransomware or
Yeah,
any?
I would say in this present time, we have to be incredibly sensitive around the types of things that we share as individuals. And as companies, we have to be better custodians of the data that we hold. And in doing so, if we're more sensitive of the data we share, and if companies are more sensitive about the data they are custodians of, that they are charged with protecting, then we can make it harder for the bad guys to get access to that data. But we're in an always on, always rapid access society at the moment. The information age is firmly upon us. And I think we just have to be better at limiting access to data.
On that note, we've come to the end. Steve, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure, Alex.